welcome to Relish Books. Today I'm doing my next Shakespeare play review, which is The Taming of the Shrew. I'm trying to read them in chronological order to the best of historians' knowledge. But I liked it a lot better than The Two Gentlemen of Verona. I'm still working through this collection, although I've had it longer than I meant to, so I'm going to probably have to return it to the library soon and maybe check out some individual copies. But yeah, I liked it a lot better than The Two Gentlemen of Verona. This play is also a comedy, but even more so than that one. The whole thing is comedic, and I think the way that it's set up, it's actually a play within a play. And I was thinking about like why he might have done it this way. You also have to remember this is still one of Shakespeare's earliest plays, so maybe he's still kind of figuring out his, not so much his style, because like I talked about before, his style stays pretty much the same, but maybe his form and the way that he lays things out with what he's doing with setup and so on. But it's actually a play within a play, so in the opening, you have these people basically playing a trick on this drunken man that they find asleep, and they move him to this fancy palace type house, and when he wakes up they try to convince him that he's actually a lord of this palace, and all it's just for fun. They're just doing it for a laugh. And so one of the things they do to try to convince him that he's actually like the lord of this house is they have these this team of actors who come in, and they have them perform this play in front of this guy. And the play that they perform is the majority of the story, The Taming of the Shrew. And I feel like the whole opening and then the very tiny bit of the closing with this guy and this jest that they're doing, it felt very unneeded. It's this tiny little bit at the beginning, tiny little bit at the end. I really feel like it was kind of a fun idea and could be a funny concept in a play, but maybe he should have used that in a different one and elaborated it, made it more of the main story, because it really didn't add anything much to this one, and the whole focus of the story is on the play that happens within the play. Maybe it was also to kind of accentuate or really make very clear that the entire play is a complete joke. It's just for entertainment. It's just to be funny. It's very purely comedic. But I feel like that should be clear anyway. I feel like the story of the play makes that very clear. But I don't know. Maybe it was just for kind of for added emphasis that this is not supposed to be taken seriously. It's just to be humorous. And it was funny. I liked it. I thought it was clever. I thought it was fun. Basically, the whole thing is that there's this very violent, nasty girl with like a sweet, kind, or supposedly, sister, and their father won't allow the younger girl, who has a bunch of suitors, to get married until he's married off her very unpleasant older sister. The older sister is Catherine, or she's sometimes called Catherine or Katharina, kind of interchangeably, and then the younger is Bianca. And so all these suitors are going after Bianca. A bunch of the people in the play actually swap around their identities, so a couple of the main guys are actually disguised as tutors so that they can woo her, pretending to be tutors. So there's this whole thing about identities switching around. I think I stayed fairly clear about who was who, but I'm not going to try to say their names because I'm sure I would trip up all over the place with what guy was which. So there's a bunch of guys after Bianca, but nobody wants to marry Catherine until the main guy comes along. How do I say his name? Porticcio? Something like that. They're all Italian. Anyway, he comes along and he's an interesting fellow, and he has this whole plot for how he's going to tame the shrew, so to speak. And so he insists on marrying Catherine, and even though it's against her will, her father really wants her gone and hasn't been able to find a man who would want to marry her because of her nasty, violent nature. And so he marries her off, And then basically this guy's whole plot for taming her is to just be really, really cruel to her until she becomes obedient. But while professing that he's doing it out of love. It's weird. It's funny. It gets to be a little much. I think it got to be a little much for me. His methods, even though I know it's all a joke, his methods got to be a little much for me because it's like, yeah, she's not a good person. She's violent. She literally just, she had her sister tied up. She was being cruel to her. She had hit multiple people. She broke an instrument over one of the tutors' heads. She slaps the guy when he proposes to her for the first time. She's a violent, mean person, but I still don't know if she deserved the treatment that her husband gives her in the taming of her. It's pretty wild. And then I also thought that her speech at the end was really ironic. She ends up giving this speech about what it means to be married and what it means to look up to your husband. And of course, this is all exaggerated, but she gives this speech that feels so ironic because it would be, the essence of what she's saying would be beautiful, except that you know the circumstances. You know that he's not being a good husband to her, and yet she makes this kind of beautiful speech about what it is to be a wife, even though the guy that she's married to has been treating her so awfully, and it's kind of unclear. I think she comes to love him by the end. I don't really know. It's unclear. It's all a comedy. You can take what you want out of it, I guess. But yeah, definitely more enjoyable than The Two Gentlemen of Verona. I gave it, kind of measuring it on a 5 stars scale, but considering that it's Shakespeare, because I'm going to go through and try to rank all of Shakespeare's plays, but with the consideration that this is Shakespeare, so I'm going to try to hold it to a pretty high standard. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's enjoyable. Again, nothing super memorable or striking or deep because it's purely comedy and none of the characters. There's some funny characters, but nobody's really likable. But definitely a step up from The Two Gentlemen of Verona. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It was getting to be a lot for me by the end, and that final speech kind of just was weird. I don't know how I feel about that. But anyway, those are some thoughts. 3.5 stars for The Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.